Well, good morning and happy Easter morning to you. I hope you're having a great day. You know, the last month or so, month and a half, has been very stressful, maybe even painful, fearful for many of us. There's been lots of questions. Is this virus real? Is this a conspiracy? Is it really as bad as the media says? Will someone I know get this virus? Will I get this virus? Will someone, a relative of mine, will they get the virus and pass away? Should I stay at home? Can I go to the store? Just all sorts of questions. Maybe your set of questions is different. Maybe you're asking the question, did God cause this? Or did He allow this to happen? What is His purpose? I really don't understand. Why is this happening? I can't understand. I can't see what God is doing. What is He wanting from this? So in the midst of all these emotions, our thoughts, our fears, we come together today to celebrate Easter. Yeah, I know. You just looked at me and you said, really, John, after that introduction, then you go to Easter. What I want to know is how I and my family can get through this, right? How can I survive this? What do I need to do? Well, you know, over the past few months, I've come to realize through some study, some reading that I've been doing that, you know, many of those questions we're asking are just not the right question. There's another one that seems more important and makes sense to me. Let me show you this. I'm going to walk you through and tell you a story, one that you already know, but one that we need to be reminded of. It's a story of asking the wrong questions. So just follow along with me and we'll do a quick walkthrough chronologically of some things. Think back with me. First, God created a perfect world, including man, and man was perfect. Everything was perfect. And then man sinned. Now, why would God do that? Why would God create something so perfect and then allow man to sin? Why allow this part of His creation to ruin the rest of creation? So Adam and Eve were removed from the garden, never to be back in there again. Their great relationship of walking and talking with God in the cool of the evening, that was gone. It was ended. And I'm sure they began to wonder as soon as they saw that angel there where they could not go back into the garden. They began to wonder and question, God, what is your plan here? What's going on? Why did this happen? How will Eve and I ever get through this? How do you expect us to survive in this? And then later on, maybe they ask, look, God, we've lost 2 sons already. The stress, the horror of that. What is it you expect of us? What do you really want? And then not very long after that, He calls on a man, Noah, and tells this man, Noah, to build him a boat. And for whatever reason, Noah starts building a boat. And then God tells him, I want you to build this boat because I'm going to destroy everything that I created, except your family. And I'm sure at that point, Noah thought, well, wait, what? You're going to destroy everything? Why not just destroy those pieces that are bad? But God lets him know, I'm going to destroy everything. And then I guess Noah and his family maybe asked, but why us, God? Why us? What's your plan, God? What are you really wanting to do here? We don't understand. We'll try to help you, but we don't really understand. Tell us the rest of your plan. But He didn't. Then some years later, God calls another man named Abram. And He tells him, I want you to leave your home. I want you to go to a land I'm going to show you. And I want you to live there. And I'm going to make a great nation out of you. And amazingly, just hearing that little bit, this man Abram does that. He leaves his family. Remember, he was from a family that were basically pagans. They were not God creator worshipers. But he heard that voice and it impacted him enough that he obeyed it and did what this God told him to do. But he had doubts. How are you going to make a great nation out of me, God? And he and his wife Sarah probably talked. How is this going to happen? What is your plan? And they went to God, and Sarah even laughed because they said, we don't even have any children, God. How are you going to do this? We're both getting well up into age. We're old. And you're telling us Abraham is going to be the father of a great nation? How are you going to do this? Wait, and then Ishmael was born to Sarah's handmaiden. And I'm sure they thought, well, this is good. That's the plan. We understand now. We understand what you were doing. Thank you, God. And then God says, nope, wrong child. And they ask questions again. How are we going to get through this, God? What are you doing? And then Isaac was born, and God said, that's the child. And then when Isaac became a teenager, God says, now, Abram, I want you to take your son, take him to a place I'm going to show you, and I want you to sacrifice and kill him. Wait, do what, God? What happened to that plan you had? What happened to that plan? This is my son, and now you want me to kill him. What happened to that plan? Nonetheless, he takes him and begins to offer him as a sacrifice, and at the last minute, God intervenes and stops it. Well, everything is great. Everything is great. Isaac ends up having a family. Jacob, his son, is born. Jacob has a family. Time goes by. Time goes by. Nation building is happening. The clan is expecting. And of Jacob's 12 sons, he has one named Joseph. You know the story of Joseph. His brothers loved him so much. They were so proud of him that they sold him into slavery. Barely kept from killing him. So they sold him into slavery and then returned home, and they tell their father, your favorite son, Joseph, has been killed by an animal. And of course, the father goes into deep mourning. My son is dead. God, what am I going to do? How does this fit into your plan? Drought, horrible drought comes into the area. The crops are dead. They decide that they hear that in Egypt there's plenty of food. So they go to Egypt, and what do you know? Find Joseph is alive. And he's the number 2 in charge of the kingdom. There's plenty of food. So the man they thought was dead is now their savior. So the whole clan moves to Egypt, and they continue to grow. They continue to grow, and they continue to grow until their clan is getting bigger and bigger and larger and larger. And of course, by this time, Jacob is dead. Joseph is dead. His sons are dead. His sons' sons are dead. And there's a new Pharaoh that does not know this clan, that does not know all of this history. And he has put this family to slaves, made them into slaves. And his words are, work them harder, work them harder, work them harder, build my buildings, build my buildings. And so they find themselves building buildings, making brick, cleaning houses, slavery. Feel the whips, feel the heat on your backs. And it continues, it continues. All hope is gone. All hope is gone. The plan is empty. And then enter another man named Moses. Now that's a different story entirely. Moses was part of that clan, but yet he was raised in the home of Pharaoh and had all the privileges to go with it. And then he goes to Pharaoh and says, let these people go. Let them go back home. And Pharaoh doesn't want to do it. So after a number of meetings and a lot of miracles, behold, the people get to leave. And they do leave. They take and they head out towards that promised land. But shortly after they're gone, Pharaoh looks around and he says, there's no one building my buildings. There's no one cooking my food. There's no one cleaning the palaces. What am I going to do? This is wrong. And he reneges on his promise. He gets his army together and he chases after the children of Israel. And now the children of Israel with Moses, their great leader, they find themselves between that proverbial rock and a hard place, except this time it's between the army and the Red Sea. And they begin to ask those same questions again. Why, God? What are you doing? What is your plan? How is this going to happen? What's going on? Maybe it would have been better for us just to remain slaves, God. Send us back and let us be slaves. But then at the nick of time, God intervenes. God intervenes and the army of Egypt is destroyed, completely destroyed. So they continue on and they do go and create another nation, but not without questions. As they go in with Joshua, they find out that these people are strong, that they're trying to conquer. And they come back and they say, no, we can't do this. We can't do this. We're too weak. These people are giants. How do you kill a giant? How do you overcome the giants in your life? But yet it happens. It happens. And they create their new nation. And after a period of time, they begin having kings. King after king after king after king. And each time it's the same thing. They begin to falter. They begin to fail. They say, God, are you watching what's going on here? Why are you doing this time after time? Why is this happening time after time? Why are we constantly at war? We have so many problems. Our neighbors hate us. They want to conquer us. They want to kill us, God. And yet multiple times, the army of Israel goes out to fight against their neighbors, and God intervenes. God intervenes time after time after time. And the army and the people are saved. And time after time, the people keep asking the same question. Are you eventually just going to kill all of us, God? Is that what your plan is? What do you really want from us? And through it all, the prophets and the teachers of the day, they continue to tell them, just trust, just be obedient. God has a plan. And yet they continue to fall back, to falter, and fail again. But then the miraculous happens. Jesus is born. Emmanuel, God with us, the God-man. He will be our new king. He'll free us from this mess we're in. He'll fix everything, meaning we'll get rid of the Romans. He will take over and make everything right in His kingdom. Now we see God. Now we understand. We're going to follow you. That's great. Except we all know from reading that that was not the plan. They were wrong. They were asking the wrong questions again. This Jesus, God's Son, Emmanuel, the sinless, the perfect God-man, was arrested, convicted, beaten, and crucified. He was then put in a cold, dark, rock tomb, and it was sealed with a huge rock. It was over. The plan was done. And everybody was saying, now what do we do? What, God? What is the plan? Why are you doing this? Why is this happening? Look, God. Are you asleep? Do you not see what's going on here? What is the point in all of this? And then something else happened. Jesus changed everything again. He pushed away that stone and He walked out of the tomb alive. Totally alive. And of course, this brought more questions. How is this possible? Who is this? How did this happen? Who moved the rock? What happened to the Roman soldiers? What's going on here, God? What is the plan? Tell us your plan. Give us the end picture. Tell us your plan. I mean, really, God, what are you doing? A few years later, we start seeing that all of this Jesus' disciples are killed off, one after another, after another, after another. And they're all dead. And people still ask, well, God, if you're going to build that kingdom, why did you kill off the ones that were the best at doing your church planning? Your evangelists, your disciples. What is that plan, God? What are you asking? Well, I told you when we started that we all had a bunch of wrong questions. All of our why questions, all of our how questions, all of our what are you doing questions, those are the wrong questions. I think there's two questions that we should be asking, that you and I should be asking, that they should have been asking. Question number one, how can I praise and glorify God through this experience that I'm going through? How can I do this? And question number two, what can we do, what can I do that will bring praise and honor and glorifying to God? Throughout history, if you've gone through this book, throughout history, God has refused to give us the answers to that long-term question of how or why. And that bothers us. Because when we answer that question, then that makes it about us. That makes it about us. You've now given me what I want. Only problem, those were wrong. They were misplaced. They were about us understanding, about us wanting something. And that's what made it so wrong. However, you know, God has been telling us from the start. God has been telling us from the start what it is He wants. We just don't listen. He's been telling us from way back in that story exactly what He wants. He wants honor, praise, and glory. That's because of our obedience. When we are obedient, when we trust, we show Him that honor, that trust, and that glorifying. Let me read you some verses real quick. Listen to these. I mean, it wouldn't be a life group lesson unless we had a little bit of the Bible read, even though I told you a good story. Listen to these. This comes from Isaiah, the 42nd chapter, talking about God's glory. I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not give my glory to another, or my praise to any idols. See, the former things have taken place, and new things I declare. Before they spring up into being, I will announce them to you. Sing to the Lord a new song, His praise from the ends of the earth. You will go down to the sea and all that is in it, you islands and all who live in them. Let the desert and its own towns raise their voices. Let the settlements where Kedar lives rejoice. Let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintops. Let them give glory to the Lord. Did you hear that? Let them give glory to the Lord and proclaim His praise in all the islands. The Lord will march out like a mighty man. Like a warrior, He will stir up His zeal. With a shout, He will raise the battle cry and will triumph over His enemies. For a long time I have kept silent. I have been quiet and held myself back. But now, like a woman in childbirth, I cry out, I gasp and I pant. I will lay waste the mountains and hills and dry up the vegetation. I will turn rivers into islands and dry up the pools. I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Among unfamiliar paths, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. These are the things I will do. You see, God is not willing for anyone, anything, any place, anybody to have His glory. So, let me give you 5 quick things, very quickly. I know time's short. 5 quick things that you're asking, how does He get His honor and glory through these experiences? Think back with me. 5 quick statements. First, He is honored and glorified when His enemies are defeated. Remember some of those stories? Every time His enemies were defeated, they praised Him. Israel, or the person involved, praised Him, and God was glorified through that. Do you think He's honored and praised when you allow Him to defeat your enemies? Your enemies of depression, of ego, of arrogance, of personal items, and yes, even of fear. Of fear. When you allow God to defeat the enemy of fear in your life, He is glorified. Number two, He is honored and glorified when His children are delivered out of trouble. In other words, whenever He decides to intervene in something, and you recognize that, and you give Him the glory for it. Think of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. 3 men that were going to be thrown in the furnace, and the king says, if you will worship this God, I won't kill you. And they said, throw us in the furnace. If God saves us, good. If He doesn't save us, good. But we are not going to worship your God, only Him. And God intervened, and He was glorified because they worshiped Him, and others recognized Him as God. Has He ever intervened and helped you in something, delivered you? Number 3, He is honored and glorified when we exalt His name. When we recognize He is doing something and we see His hands in it, and we say, that's God. We don't understand what He's doing, but that's God. That's what's happening today in the world. I am getting stories from all over the world from different people saying multitudes, 20 here, 30 here, have come to faith. They've come to faith in places we would never imagine because they're recognizing God's hand in something, and they're saying only God could allow this, only God could fix it. Miracles are happening. Miracles are happening. Can you possibly glorify and thank Him for something that you don't understand? You see Him doing it, but you don't understand it. He is honored and glorified when we remember His past exploits and experiences. Think of all the times back through history when God did something. When He did something, where He intervened, where He did something and it changed lives. Anytime you tell that story to someone and you give credit to God, He is honored and He is glorified. Anytime you tell a story and you give that glory to man, to the armaments, to the break mines, to all of these kind of things, He's not glorified. God may have helped them with that. God gives the scientists the knowledge to do things, but it's God that performs it and makes it happen. So when we realize that and we give God credit for what God is doing, He is glorified. And lastly, He is honored and glorified when we stop and just praise Him in times of uncertainty and doubt. And that's now. We need to be thanking Him in this time of uncertainty. You see, He's never going to give us the whole picture. He wants us to glorify Him and say, I don't understand this plan, but I do know that Jesus walked out of that tomb. He walked out alive. He's alive today, sitting at the side of God, and I'm going to praise and I'm going to honor Him. And that, my friends, is what this day of Easter is all about. We rejoice and we praise and we honor Him for what He did on this day in history thousands of years ago. I honor You and I praise You, God, and I give You glory. I hope you guys have a great day. I look forward to seeing you at 10:45 this morning with the pastor's sermon and our Easter messages. You have a great day and God bless you.